I get asked all the time, what rod should I use for this crankbait? And in this video, I'm gonna break it all down for you. Everything from small little finesse cranks, like this right here, up to the big, deep diving plugs. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome. What's up, everybody? Thank you for clicking on the video. This one is gonna be a fun one. Like I said, you guys DM me and ask all the time, what rod should I use for this crankbait? And I spend a lot of my time answering those DMs. I respond to every DM that I receive. I figured it was about time that we go ahead and just do a full breakdown video. I'm gonna go through everything. All my rods, all my cranking setups that I use to throw all these baits that you see right here in front of me. Everything from the small little finesse square bill crankbaits up to super deep diving big crankbait plugs like these down here. So I've got a bunch of baits laid out right here. I'm gonna go through the setups. I'm gonna tell you guys what I personally use, and then hopefully you can use that information to either purchase the right rod for yourself or use whatever you have at your disposal. Really quick, I wanna give a shout out to the awesome companies that sponsor this channel and help me do what I do. First up, Waterland, waterlandco.com, JR15 for 15% off the best shades in the game. Get yourself a pair of polarized lenses. It's extremely important. Springtime is right around the corner, and you know you're gonna need to be able to see into that water so we can do some bed fishing. Also, as you can see, there's a lot of 6th Sense baits on the table in front of me. 6thsensefishing.com, JR10 for the win. 6th Sense massive supporters of me and what I do over here. Could not do this without them. So you guys check them out if you're interested in any of these baits that we're gonna talk about. The rods that I use, obviously, my signature line of heater series rods are available from 6th Sense, so we're going to talk about a lot of that, but there are some other rods in here that aren't heater series rods that I sometimes use for cranking as well. Let's jump off into it. Shout out to 6th Sense and Waterland. Let's talk crankbaits. So I think I'm going to start at the small end of the spectrum and then just work my way up to my biggest, deepest cranking setup, and hopefully this video will help you guys. If you like crankbait fishing, go down below right now and hit the thumbs up button on the video. Help more people find this. Shout outs to everybody who's been subscribing lately. We're well on our way to 82K, but I can't do it without you. So if you're watching right now and you're not already subscribed, click that subscribe button. Let's talk about some crankbaits. Crankbait fishing. It is one of the most fun ways to catch them. It might be my #1 favorite way to catch largemouth bass. I have so much fun throwing crankbaits, and I'm talking any of these, everything from small little finesse cranks up to the big deep divers. I just have a blast catching them on the treble hooks. I love throwing hard baits on a parabolic rod and hooking into a fish, fighting them to the boat. There's just something different about it. Ever since I first started my square bill journey, which is what really got me into throwing the hard baits and throwing the crankbaits, I've been hooked, and I've done a whole lot of crankbait fishing since then, and I have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different setups right here to my right that I use across the spectrum for this kind of fishing. So as you can see, I have a bunch of baits lined up here, and I'm gonna talk to you guys about how I throw each one of these. There are so many different crankbaits on the market. I'm hoping that this video will be able to help you kind of just get an idea. I'm not gonna be able to talk about every crankbait that's out there, but I will talk about weights, dive depths, and what equipment that I use to throw said weights and dive depth baits. So let's just start at the smaller side of things. The first setup that we're gonna break down right now is the one that I use probably the most often. It's the one that is the most versatile out of all the heater series rods. I go on and on about this rod. You guys have heard me speak on it multiple times if you've been watching my channel. I'm talking, of course, about the heater series 6'9" medium moderate. Now, really quick, I want to mention, before we get too deep off into things here, when we're talking about baits, you see this bait that I have right here tied on. This is the new Pressure Series PD7 from 6th Sense Fishing. And the Pressure Series is about to drop. You guys have been asking me when this bait will be available. Sunday. The Pressure Series, the full series, everything from the PD4 up to the deep diving PDs is going to be available for you guys to get your hands on. There are a bunch of colors, multiple dive depths. The hooks on this bait are insane, and I can't wait for you guys to be able to check it out. That's the Pressure Series. This is the PD7, and this is the setup that I've been using to throw this little flat side medium diving crankbait on. But it's not the only bait that I use this setup for. I actually use this for several of these baits out here. Let's talk about them. So first up on the list, small little finesse square bill. This is the Curve Finesse Square Bill. It is a 3/8 ounce square bill crankbait that dives 1 to 3 feet. And we're talking small bait fish profile. Definitely a finesse style square bill crankbait. It's that shad scales color, super heater. This is my number one, my go-to, my confidence color, and honestly, my confidence square bill crankbait. When it comes to numbers, I've not caught more fish on any square bill than this one right here. The Curve Finesse, little small bait fish profile, killer bait, and I use this 6'9" medium moderate rod to throw it. Let's talk reels when it comes to square bills or any cranking for that matter. I'm gonna go one of two ways. I'm either throwing all these cranks on either a 6-to-1 or 7-to-1. And that depends on whether or not I wanna be like speed cranking with a 7-to-1, or if I want to just do like a more standard traditional style of square bill cranking or deep cranking where I get maximum torque and maximum dive depth. In that case, I'll use a 6-to-1. Sometimes I will throw them on an 8.5-to-1, and that's when I'm like really trying to turn and burn. But for the most part, I'm using either a 7-to-1 or a 6-to-1 reel. And I'm using generally anywhere from 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon when I do it. Sometimes 10 if I'm trying to get maximum dive depth, but for the most part, I'm like a 12 to 15 pound dude when it comes to the cranking. So that gets the reel speeds and the line weight out of the way so you guys can just know that across all these setups, that's what I'm coming with. 6-to-1 or 7-to-1 if I'm speed cranking, 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon line. The 6'9", medium moderate, excellent for the PD7. There's gonna be a PD4 as well. Excellent for the small profile square bill crankbait. But I also throw my number one, my favorite square bill to throw of all time, the Crush 50X. Now this is actually a 1/2 ounce bait, dives 2 to 5 feet. Chester Cheeto, that's a Crush 50. The Radiation Craw, that's my favorite color and my favorite crankbait of all time. Because when it comes to numbers and big fish, it's just performed for me so well, and I absolutely love it. In addition to the baits that I already mentioned, I also throw the Curve 55. This is a 3/8 ounce medium diving crankbait, sort of like a wiggle wart style bait. This one, medium diver, little light, so I still throw it on the 6'9". Perfect. I would say the 6'9" is comparable to like the 705 CB, almost. For you Dobbins guys out there, that'll give you a little bit of idea. Shorter rod, really deep parabolic bend. It helps keep those fish pinned when you're fishing with the crankbaits, those treble hooks. You know, you want to have the right kind of gear so that you don't rip these hooks out of these fish's mouths. And you need to play the fish properly when you're crankbait fishing. The 6'9" medium moderate is extremely versatile, and it enables me to do that across the spectrum of all these lighter baits that I talked about. Let's get outside of 6 cents baits for a second. I know a lot of you guys like throwing the rattle trap, the old classic Bill Louie rattle trap, throwing that on the 6'9" medium moderate. There's a Lucky Craft LV 500 and the new Duke 55, the smaller profile finesse lipless that 6 cents recently released. I'm throwing that on the 6'9" medium moderate. So there we covered the small end of the spectrum. Like I said, this one right here, super versatile. I use it for a lot of stuff, not just small crankbaits. I mean, I use this rod for flukes, top water, blade baits, crankbaits, lipless crankbaits. The list goes on and on. 6-to-1 reel, 12 to 15 pound fluoro, 6'9" medium moderate heater series. And that is the move for a lot of my cranking applications, especially when it comes to smaller profile hard baits and square bills. Love this setup. There's not one that I have much more fun throwing. And like I said, you guys keep your eyes peeled. Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for the new PD7 and the entire pressure series dropping on 6centsfishing.com. JR10 for the win. You know the deal. Now, I mentioned a moment ago this Curve 55. I got a couple different rods in my cranking lineup that are not heater series rods, and this is one of them right here. This is one of my favorite series that 6 Cents has ever come out with. This is the Sensory Series 7.2 medium. So it's still a medium power, just like the 6'9", but it has a little bit more length to it. And I find that sometimes that length can help when you're throwing the mid diver like the Curve 55, which is what you see I have tied on right here. So the 7.2 medium Sensory Series, it's another 6.3-to-1 Shimano SLX DC right there, the 70, and Yeah, I love throwing the lighter baits like the small square bills and small medium diving cranks on reels like the 70 size reels, the MGLs, SLX MGL 70 right here, or the Corrado MGL 70. I like the shallow spool and the 6-to-1 for throwing baits like this. And the 7.2 medium sensory series, that's another option. So that gives you a little bit of a range there, you know, anything from 6.9 to 7.2. Medium is where you want to be though. That's the power. Medium, it just is going to let that rod load up and it's going to help you fish those crankbaits. It's going to help crankbait fishing be more enjoyable. Not only when it comes to keeping the fish pin and fighting the fish in, but when it comes to casting your bait out as well. Once you get into these parabolic rods, really start to notice a difference with how the rod performs when it's paired with the right bait. And I promise you, you start trying to throw some of these crankbaits around on like a medium heavy fast tip or a heavy fast, it just doesn't work. But once you get into the parabolic stuff, the stuff that loads up medium power rods, it really helps. And I like the moderate fast to moderate action rods for throwing all these baits. Let's keep it bumping. Let's keep it rocking. And we'll talk about the next rod in my cranking setup lineup. It's actually another 7-foot 2-inch rod, just like that sensory I just showed you. But this is the 7-foot 2-inch medium heavy mod fast heater series rod. And as you can see, I have a couple of them rigged up right here. This is the Flat Finesse F4 crankbait. I will throw this bait on either the 7.2 or the 7.4 heater series. And we'll talk about that rod here in a second. But right now, I got the F4s tied onto the 7.2s. These are 6.3 to 1 and 6.2 to 1 SLX DC and Shimano Corrado 200 reels. The Flat Finesse F4, ever since it came out, has been a staple in my cranking lineup. Flat side, circuit board lip, insane colors. If you're not throwing the F4, you are sleeping. Check out that Milliken craw. That right there, super heater. This is that hologram shad. Those are my two favorite colors in that bait. And it pairs up really well with the 7.2 medium heavy mod fast heater series rod. Like I said, I do throw the F4 on the 7.4 and we'll touch on that. But a couple of the other baits that I throw on the 7.2, for whatever reason, I really prefer the 7.2 for your larger profile square bills like this right here. This is the Crush 100X. It's the big brother to the Crush 50. Now, you got the Crush 100X and you got the Crush 100S silent. The 7.2 is excellent for both the F4, the Crush 100, or even the Flat 75X. But a couple of the other baits that I like to throw on the 7.2 when it comes to lipless, the Quake Thud 70. Love throwing that on a 7.2. So that's my sort of mid-size, lower mid-size cranking setup number one. The 7.2 medium heavy mod fast heater series. My favorite bait to throw on it is the Crush 100, but you can definitely throw the F4, the larger flat sides, and the larger lipless baits on this rod as well. But now we're gonna bump up just one level, one step to, honestly, this is my baby out of the heater series. This is the first one that we developed. It's the 7-foot 4-inch medium heavy mod fast heater series swim jig rod, but it is an excellent rod for throwing a little bit beefier square bills and crankbaits like this Movement 80 that you see I have tied on right here. This is a little wake bait. I'm not just talking strictly square bills and deep divers. There are other categories of crankbaits, and this is a rod that I find myself going to time and time again for throwing baits like the Movement 80 Wake, the Flat Finesse F4, but my favorite crankbait or square bill crankbait to throw on the 7.4 medium heavy mod fast heater series rod is without a doubt the Crush Flat 75X. A little bit larger profile, flat sided. It's a little bit beefier than the Flat Finesse F4. And the 7.4 is just perfectly dialed for this bait right here. It looks really similar to that F4 I was showing you, right? But it's just got a little bit more width to it, a little bit more weight to it. For whatever reason, this matched up with the 7.4. It's money. It's money. And I use that rod to throw that bait a lot. Throwing the F4 on it as well with no problem. But the Flat 75X, that's definitely my go-to. And another bait that I will throw on the 7.4 medium heavy mod fast heater series rod is the Quake 80. Larger profile lipless, the big brother to the Quake 70. If you want to bump up size on your lipless, check out that 7.4 medium heavy mod fast super heater. Also, the SB Mini Mag. Oh, dropped it, the Cloud 9 Mini Mag SB 3.8. Shout outs to Lee Livesey. This is a pretty beefy square bill crankbait. I mean, that's larger profile. What's the weight on this thing? 7/8 of an ounce, dives 3 to 6 feet. That's a big square bill. Got some size to it. The 7.4 can handle it. So everything from the Flat Finesse F4 up to the SV Mini Mag and the Movement series, I'm throwing on that 7.4. 7.4, medium heavy, mod fast. And that is a Corrado 70 right there. And that is actually an HG 7-to-1 reel. I will crank on a 6-to-1 or a 7-to-1. Don't think I won't. 8.5 sometimes on a speed cranking, but generally a 6-to-1 or 7-to-1 as mentioned. 7.4, medium heavy mod fast heater series. Special place in my heart for this rod. It's extremely versatile. I throw swim jigs on this, chatterbaits on this, big square bills, other crankbaits. I love this rod, man. I love the heater series. Shout outs to anybody out there fishing with a heater series rod. You are heater family. And I can never thank you guys enough for the relentless support that you have shown the heater series ever since we launched the line. Thank you guys. Next up, we're bumping down in weight, but up in length. This is one of the outliers. This is the sleeper out of the entire heater series lineup. I feel like people sleep on this one the most. This is the 7.5 medium moderate. It's another medium power rod. So this rod has an extremely parabolic bend to it. It loads up deep. It's light. And I love this rod for throwing the lipless. This is a Snatch 70X lipless. Straight dialed on the 7.5 medium. Also, throw the Quake on this one sometimes. I throw the Swank 66X, smaller profile Swank on this one. What else am I throwing on this rod? Oh, speaking of the Cloud 9 series, the Cloud 9 C6, throwing that on the 7.5 medium moderate. So this is like a mid-diving crankbait, more like your traditional style crankbait right here. You know, it's not finesse profile. It just dives like that 6 to 8 foot range. And this 7.5 is perfect for the heavier medium diving crankbaits, and it is straight fire for the lipless baits like the Snatch 70. That's that Rambo Red. Shout outs to my buddy Justin Dubose, my brother from another. I'll throw the Duke on that. You could also throw the Duke 55, no problem. Could probably get away with throwing the Curve 55 on that rod. Some of these are gonna like overlap, you know. You can do adjusting, you can experiment, you can figure out what works best for you. I'm just telling you what works for me. Don't listen to me, I don't know. I don't know what's best for you. I just know what is best for me from all the fishing that I've done with all these baits and all these rods. Snatch 70X, 7.5, straight fire. But now we're gonna start getting into the deep stuff. We're gonna start talking about some of these deep divers. I know this is what you guys wanna know about. All you offshore guys, the deep plugs. Let's pause for a minute and just talk about crankbait fishing for a second before I go over the rest of these rods. So when and how do I apply these baits? When and how do I go cranking? Well, all year. I crank all year long. I don't care if it's spring, summer, wintertime, frozen, or super on fire, sweat beading off your forehead, can barely take it, totally impossible to even drink enough water. I will crank year round, and it's just something that I love doing, and it's something I've had success with in all months. But there are definitely times of the year where these techniques shine. When it comes to colors and stuff like that, everybody has their theories. A lot of people say red is a springtime color. I find myself throwing the reds in the colder months when the water is cold. It's a wintertime color to me. I've seen great success with colors like this when it's really cold out. You know, we talked about a lot of different crankbaits, and we're talking about everything from shallow square billing to deep divers. Square bills, obviously, you know, I'm throwing those right off the bank. That's when I'm power fishing, making a lot of casts. I'm trying to bang through rocks, and make bottom contact is something that, you know, you really want to keep in mind. I used to tell people no bottom contact, no bite. That's not necessarily a hard, fast, ironclad rule, but for the most part, when your bait is banging off of cover, that's when it really gets those fish going, and that's when you're going to get a lot of your bites, whether it be rocks, shell beds, hardwoods. anything like that, when you get the baits knocking through and smacking off a cover like that, it really triggers a lot of strikes. And when I'm digging a square bill or a medium diver into the bottom of the lake, that's when I've caught some of my absolute best fish and some of my most fish doing that. So anything shallow, I'm trying to grind. I'm trying to bang into the rocks. I fish a rocky bottom lake, a lot of limestone, a lot of boulders, and I'm trying to crash through there with whatever hard bait I'm throwing, whether it be a small profile square bill or a medium diver. When it comes to deep divers, I like fishing rocky points a lot. Anytime when there's a rocky point that has a lot of depth at the end of it, where the water gets deeper, pretty drastic drop off sometimes, that's where I'm throwing baits like this, you know, the deep diving plugs. Aside from that, ledges. Anywhere that's shallow and it drops off into deeper depths, those fish are gonna sit right there on that drop off or close to it, and burning a crankbait over the top of that drop off where those fish are sitting here and they see it come above them, even if you're not making bottom contact, woo! A lot of times, man, that's the way to get it done. And obviously, you know, you can burn cranks through schools. If you got them schooling, if you can see them on live scope, if there are wolf packs roaming, you don't have to make bottom contact. Sometimes you can just blast one of these suckers straight across their face and they will eat it. And I've caught a lot of offshore fish doing that, but primarily the smaller stuff, I'm trying to bang into the rocks, bang into the ground, make a lot of commotion, trigger those strikes. And with the deeper diving stuff, long rocky points or points with cover on it, or ledges, that's where I like to fish those baits. And hopefully that gives you guys just a couple tips and pointers, help you get some more bites when you're throwing the hard baits. Let's talk about some of the gear that I use to throw these big deep divers, okay? So first up, next up in the lineup, probably my favorite deep cranking setup that I own. This is the Lux series from 6th Sense. Lux series 711 medium heavy moderate Cloud 9 cranker. This rod was designed for the Cloud 9 series of deep diving crankbaits, like this C15 that you see tied on right here. Also, the Crush 250 MD pairs up really nicely with the 711 medium heavy mod fast. But now that I'm thinking of this bait, I want to talk about two medium-ish diving, medium to deep diving crankbaits, larger profile, the Crush 250 MD and the Cloud 9 C10. These are my two super confidence, a little bit larger, you know, they're diving into that 10-foot range, 8 to 12 feet, and I've caught so many fish on the Cloud 9 C10. Shad scale is my favorite color, and this rod right here pairs up great with these baits, but also they have another rod in the lineup. I think it's a 710 ESP medium, something like that. I might have one over here in the corner. Let me check. Yeah, here it is right here. It's actually a 7.9, 7-foot, 9-inch medium power ESP series. Haven't fished with it in a while. As you can see, I don't have a reel currently mounted up to it. But for the C10 and the 250 MD, I really love throwing those baits on this rod, as well as the 711 Cloud 9 cranker, all the way up to the C15. Anything up to 15-foot dive depth, 15 to 17 feet, 711 medium heavy mod Cloud 9 cranker. This right here is a Shimano Bantam. This is my favorite freaking cranking reel right here. So buttery smooth. It's actually a 7.1 to 1. Like I said, I will crank on a 7 to 1. The Shimano Bantam, dude. Excellent deep cranking rod for the big, heavy plugs. Love it. Let's bump up. We're gonna wrap this video up soon. Trying to get through this. Anything above the C15. So anything above 15 to 18 feet. Cloud 9 C20, Crush 500 DD. I know you guys have seen some hammers like Lee Livesey and the homie Ben Milliken smashing dragons on baits like this right here. This is a big deep diving crankbait. I mean, this thing is not playing around. This is the 500 DD. They also have the 300 size. I throw them both, but I throw them both on a long, super parabolic rod. And I'm talking about this one right here. This is the 8-foot heavy mod fast Lux series rod. This is a big rod. This is an excellent Alabama rig rod, excellent swim bait rod. The deep divers, I'm talking about the offshore stuff, the stuff that's pretty much impossible to throw from the bank. Cloud 9 C20, Cloud 9 C25, 500 and 300 DD. Oh, there's a little EWG hook. 500 and 300 DD. The big, heavy deep divers. As you can see, I got one rigged up right here with the SLX DC. 6.3 to 1, 12-pound fluorocarbon, and that's a C20 right there, Cloud 9 C20, in the best chartreuse color to ever grace a crankbait. That blue truce, absolute super heater. And the 8-foot Lux series rod is just awesome for throwing these big deep diving baits like that. So that's it. Those are my cranking setups. We went through everything, all the way from the 6.9 up to the 8-footer. You don't need all these, but it definitely helps. Hopefully that gives you guys some information. Go back, watch the video again. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. I'll try to get back to you guys. Really, my two favorites, it's going to be the first one that we talked about and the last one that we talked about. I love throwing smaller profile finesse cranks, 50 size cranks and smaller, like the Curve Finesse and the Crush 50X. And I love throwing big, deep diving crankbaits. When you get on a big, deep cranking bite, it is just unlike anything else, man. There's nothing like catching a freaking dragon on a big chartreuse deep diving crankbait. It's just special. And I have a lot of fun throwing baits like this, man. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit more info, shows you guys how I would fish each one of these baits, and helps answer some of your questions regarding cranking in general. Everything from the square bills, lipless cranks, other, outlier, different style of crankbaits, and deep diving crankbaits as well. Magnum square bills, finesse square bills. I tried to cover it all and give you guys a breakdown. Like I said, it doesn't have to be heater series. Now you know the links and the powers and the gear, and you can take that information and apply it to whatever brand of rod that you prefer. I recommend the heater series. I'm quite partial to them. That's my signature line of rods. 6centsfishing.com, JR10 for 10% off everything on the website, including all of the incredible baits that I showed you in this video. Shout outs to 6 Cents for helping us do what we do. Shout outs to you guys for watching. Hope you guys keep your eyes peeled for the new Pressure series dropping Sunday, 6 p.m. Texas time on 6centsfishing.com. Pull the hammer back on that JR10 6-shooter, secure the heater, save the bread, support the movement at the same time. Shout outs to 6 Cents Fishing. Shout outs to all of you. And shout outs to these incredible people on the screen right here, the almighty Heater Army. The folks who go above and beyond on a monthly basis to support the channel and enable us to continue bringing free fishing content to everybody here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for your relentless support, both of me, 6 Cents, the Heater series, this channel, Heater Army, JR10 Army, Heater Family. You guys know what time it is. That's about all I got for you today. That about does it. That about wraps her on up. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I will see you on the next one.